Hello, everyone. Today is 2024, December the 3rd. Today's topic is President Seungman Lee speech to the United States Congress in 1954, July 28. And also, China must be blockaded at sea, promoting the construction of U.S. naval and Air Force bases on Jeju Island. I'm in charge of Indo-Pacific Strategy Institute. My name is Suyong Choi. English name is David Choi. Please pass this message to the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and his loyal associates. I'm a former case officer of the National Intelligence Service of the Republic of Korea. And I was a secret agent who mainly dealt with North Korean and Chinese issues, clandestine operation, or covert operation on the ground. I graduated from the Department of Chinese Language and Literature at Seoul National University, and I received a master's degree in Chinese simultaneous interpretation from the Graduate School of Interpretation and Translation at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies, and mainly worked in China and the Asian regions. If I were the Director of National Intelligence Service of the Republic of Korea, or a candidate for the next president, I would first tell President Donald J. Trump the speech that President Seungman Lee gave to the United States Congress on July 28 in 1954. On how to bring down the Chinese Communist Party. And I will tell you about how the current South Korean government will implement a naval blockade against the Chinese Communist Party. In the United States, I'd like to ask the next presidential candidate of Korea if he knows how President Seungman Lee spoke in his speech before the United States Congress on July 28, 1954, and how he talked about and how he would destroy the Chinese Communist Party. And the United States should definitely ask the South Korean presidential candidate what strategy he has to take down the Chinese Communist Party. If you were to ask him if he was the next presidential candidate and someone under the influence of the Chinese Communist Party, he would not be able to answer. Below is an excerpt from President Seungman Lee speech to the United States Congress on July 28, 1954, in which he addressed the Chinese Communist Party. Ladies and gentlemen, the Korean frontier comprises only one small portion of the war. We want to win the war for Asia, the war for the world, the war for freedom on earth. Yet the Republic of Korea has offered you its 20 equipped divisions and the men to compose 20 more. 1.5 million young Koreans ask for nothing better than to fight for the cause of human freedom, their honor, and their nation. The valor of our men has been proved in battle, and no American has doubted it since General Van Fleet's statement that the Korean soldier is equal of any fighting man in the world. The government of the Republic of China in Formosa also has offered you 630,000 men of its armed forces and additional reserves. The communist regime on the mainland of China is a monster with feet of clay. It is hated by the masses, although the Reds have murdered 15 million of their opponents. Thousands of free Chinese guerrillas are still fighting in the interior of China. Red China's army numbers 2,500,000, but its loyalty is not reliable. As was proved when 14,369 of the Communist Chinese army captured in Korea chose to go to Formosa, Taiwan, and only 220 chose to return to Red China. Furthermore, the economy of Red China is extremely vulnerable. 60% of its imports reach it by sea, and seaborne coastal tariffs is its cheap means of communication from north to south. A blockade of the China coast by the American Navy would produce chaos in its communications. The American Air Force, as well as the Navy, would be needed to ensure the successes of the counterattack on the Red Chinese regime, but let me repeat, no American foot soldiers. The return of the Chinese mainland to the side of the free world would automatically produce a victorious end to the wars in Korea and Indochina, and would swing the balance of power so strongly against the Soviet Union that it would not dare to risk war with the United States. Unless we win China back, an ultimate victory for the free world is unthinkable. Would not the Soviet government, therefore, launch its own ground forces into the battle for China, and its air force as well? Perhaps, but that would be excellent for the free world, since it would justify the destructions of the Soviet centers of the production by the American Air Force before the Soviet hydrogen bomb had been produced in quantity. I am aware that this is a hard doctrine, but the communists have made this a hard world, a horrible world in which to be soft is to become a slave. Ladies and gentlemen of the Congress, the fate of human civilization itself awaits our supreme resolutions. Let us take courage and stand up in defense of the ideals and principles upheld by the fathers of American independence, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, and again by the great emancipator Abraham Lincoln, who did not hesitate to fight in defense of the Union, which could not survive half free and half a slave. Let us remember, my friends, that peace cannot be restored in the world half communist and half democratic. Your momentous decision is needed now to make Asia safe for freedom, for that will automatically settle the world communist problems in Europe, Africa, and America. So far, I have told you the part of President Syngman Rhee's speech to the United States Congress that contains a solution on how to bring down China. Mr. President of United States of America, Donald J. Trump, if I were the director of the National Intelligence Service of the Republic of Korea or a candidate for the next presidential election, I would propose building a large-scale naval base, Air Force base, and Marine Corps base on Dokjeokdo Island, an island off the west coast of the Korea Peninsula, in front of Incheon, in order to blockade China at sea and for the Korean and the United States militaries to use it together. And there are several small uninhabited islands about 17 kilometers southwest of the Dokjeokdo Island, and I would like to propose that they be reclaimed and used as a basis for the Korean and the United States Navy's Air Force and Marines. The size of Dokjeokdo Island and the newly reclaimed island are both about half the size of the Incheon International Airport. So, if the Korean and the American Air Forces, Navy, and the Marines are stationed on these two islands, it will be impossible for Chinese naval vessels to leave port in Dalian and Qingdao, where Chinese naval bases are located. The distance from Dokjeokdo Island to Dalian port is only about 430 kilometers, and the distance from Dokjeokdo Island to Qingdao port is only about 530 kilometers. Therefore, if the latest supersonic surface-to-ship missile with a range of 500 kilometers developed in Korea are deployed in large numbers, Chinese naval ships will not be able to leave the port. Even if there are hundreds of Chinese ships, if Dalian and Qingdao ports are blockaded by South Korean supersonic anti-ship missiles, at least 200 to 300 ships will be trapped in the port. And I'd like to make another suggestion. If you look 120 kilometers northwest of Jeju Island, there is an island called Gagodo Island. The size of this island is about 5 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide. I propose that this island be used as a military base for the navies and the Air Force of the Republic of Korea and the United States to be stationed altogether. From this Gagodo Island, Qingdao Port, where the Chinese naval base is located, is approximately 490 kilometers away. Shanghai Port is approximately 440 kilometers away, and Ningbo Port is approximately 550 kilometers away. If the Korean and the American Air Forces and the navies were stationed on this island, and a large number of the Korean military's latest supersonic surface-to-ship missiles were deployed, it would be possible to tie down about 300 Chinese naval ships and prevent them from leaving the port. Also, if you look to the southwest of Jeju Island, there is a small military airfield that was used during the Japanese colonial period. If we developed this place and build on Air Force base and naval base that can be used by the United States and the Korean militaries, hundreds of Chinese naval ships will not be able to pass through Jeju Island and advance to the Pacific Ocean. Almost all of the Chinese ships and submarines will be trapped on the west coast of the Korea Peninsula. And if we sink them all with the supersonic surface-to-ship missile or supersonic air-to-ship missile that South Korea has recently developed, and the Chinese Navy can be dealt with very easily. This tactic is the crane wing formation used by Admiral Yi Sun-shin against the Japanese Navy that invaded the Joseon dynasty. The ancient nation of Korea on August 14, 1592. If all Chinese ships and submarines were trapped on the west coast of the Korea Peninsula, and the South Korean and the U.S. navies and air forces poured out various missiles, they could be destroyed very easily. Koreans have fought numerous wars in the waters around the Korea Peninsula and in Manchuria since the time of their ancestors, so they have many strategies to crush down China. So, while it seems like a very easy task for Korean strategists to defeat the Chinese militaries, it seems like American strategists find it too difficult. American strategists tend to make things too complicated and difficult. So, sometimes Koreans have a hard time understanding what American strategists are trying to do. I would also like to propose that the Republic of Korea build Republic of Korea Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps bases in the northern Philippines and secure passage through the Luzon Strait, the strait between the Philippines and Taiwan. If Republic of Korea Navy, Air Force, and the Marine Corps bases are built in the northern Philippines and the Republic of Korea naval ships, submarines, and fighter jets are deployed in large numbers, China will not be able to invade Taiwan. And the South Korean Navy and Air Force can sufficiently block Chinese naval vessels and the submarines departing from Hainan Island, where a Chinese naval base is located, from passing through the Luzon Strait and advancing into the Pacific Ocean. Because it takes a lot of money to build the military bases I mentioned earlier, I hope that President Donald J. Trump will raise tariffs on Chinese products significantly, but not on Korean products. If only one of the two people, the President of the Republic of Korea and the Director of the National Intelligence Service, were to do their jobs properly, it would be possible for the Korean military alone to blockade the Chinese Navy and Air Force without needing the full force of the United States military in Korea. However, the Yoon government spent 57 trillion won, that is $43.8 billion on defense in 2023, while supporting 102.3 trillion won, equal to $78.7 billion to non-governmental organizations. An additional 2.4 billion won, the trillion won, that is $18.5 billion, were spent on gender recognition. And when these two items are combined, 126.3 trillion won, that is $97.2 billion, wasted. The Yoon government provided twice as much money as the defense budget to NGOs as operating funds. Even though the South Korean government has a sufficient budget to spend up to 120 trillion won, $92.3 billion on defense every year, but it is using it in the wrong places. I don't know who will be the next presidential candidate of the Republic of Korea, but I hope that in the United States, you will definitely ask the next presidential candidates of the Republic of Korea whether he or she is willing to put into practice the suggestions I have made above. If he had been recruited by Chinese Communist Party a long time ago, or was someone under the Chinese Communist Party's spheres of influence, he would not be able to give proper answers. My friends warned me that if I talked about this on television, killers in China might come to kill me. I am someone who has already written several suicide notes while working for the South Korean intelligence agency. If I pass away, my comrades will tell my American friends about me. And if I vanished or disappeared, they will realize that the method I have suggested is the only way to dismantle China, break down China. And they will pressure the Korean government to implement the method I have suggested. If I could embrace the enemy and disappear for the sake of my beloved country, there would be no greater honor for me as a secret agent, secret case officer. The ancestors of the Korean people and the ancestors of the Chinese people have been at war for the past 5,000 years. So, if I could use this opportunity to dismantle down China and reclaim the homeland where our ancestors lived, there would be no greater honor for my country and people. Thank you. God bless my country.